Penelope swiped her finger to the right of her phone screen and found what appeared to be the perfect man. Logan was charming, he said all the right things, and within a few months, they were exchanging vows in front of family and friends. It all seemed like a digital fairy tale, the kind of story everyone dreams of living. But what no one expected was that the happily ever after had an expiration date. Then she realized that she married a stranger, a handsome, charming stranger she met on Tinder. And before their first wedding anniversary, she was signing the divorce papers. Penelope never imagined her love story would begin with a swipe and end with a signature. It was early spring in Nebraska, still cold, still lonely. She had just gotten out of something complicated, and she wasn't looking for anything serious. Just distraction. Just a little warmth in a long winter. Then came Logan. He had a crooked smile and eyes that felt like summer. Their first date? It lasted 7 hours. They laughed until their cheeks hurt. Talked like they'd known each other in another life. By the third date, they were inseparable. By the third month, they were living together. "Why wait?" he said one night, holding her hand in the kitchen. The lights were low. The wine was sweet. Everything felt right. And Penelope, she was tired of waiting. Tired of almosts. Tired of heartbreaks that dragged on for years and never led anywhere. So she said yes. The wedding was small, quick, a courthouse in Omaha. Just the two of them, a judge and a photographer who doubled as witness. No family, no friends, no second thoughts yet. At first, everything felt magical, like a movie montage. Coffee in the mornings, kisses on the forehead, grocery store dances, whispers in bed, plans for a future, plans for a baby, plans for forever. But slowly, quietly, the cracks began to show. Logan would leave the house without saying where he was going. Penelope would cry alone in the bathroom, pretending she had something in her eye. They started to fight over little things. How long the dishes sat in the sink, how she folded the towels, how he forgot to text when he got home from work. It wasn't just the arguments. It was the silence after, the way they turned their backs in bed, the way they avoided each other in the kitchen, the way laughter disappeared from their home. And here's the thing. They loved each other, but they didn't know each other. Not really. They knew how to kiss, how to touch, but they didn't know how to sit in pain together, how to communicate, how to stay when staying got hard. Logan had a past he never talked about. Penelope had wounds she thought love would heal. Love isn't always enough. Sometimes it blinds you. Sometimes it burns too fast, too hot. And when the fire goes out, there's nothing but ashes. 11 months. That's how long it took. 11 months from I do to I can't do this anymore. When Penelope signed the papers, her hands didn't shake. Her eyes didn't cry. They had cried enough. Now there was just emptiness and silence and the quiet echo of a life that almost was. She walked out of the courthouse alone. No one waiting, no music, just the sound of her heels against the pavement and the wind blowing across the Nebraska sky. A love that burned too quickly. A marriage built on butterflies, not bricks. A promise made too soon. Have you ever fallen for someone so fast you didn't even see the ground until you hit it? For a while after the wedding, Penelope told herself that all couples go through this. The awkward silences, the tired apologies, the distance. She chalked it up to the newlywed adjustment period. Everyone warned her marriage was hard, but no one told her it could be this lonely. Logan still kissed her goodnight, but there was a numbness in his eyes. Like he was there, but not really. And Penelope? She became an expert at pretending to laugh, pretending to sleep, pretending that what they had was still real. They stopped going on dates. They stopped talking about the future. Most days, they just coexisted, like roommates playing house. He'd eat dinner on the couch with the TV on. She'd sit at the table staring at her untouched plate, wondering when everything had started to fall apart. They never had the big blow-up fight. No slamming doors, no dramatic exit. It was worse than that. They faded, slowly, quietly, without anyone noticing. And that's what scared her the most. Because when someone breaks your heart with a scream, you know how to heal. But when they break it in silence, you start to question if it was ever whole to begin with. One night, Penelope scrolled through old photos on her phone. There they were, smiling at the beach, dancing in the kitchen, kissing in the rain. Two people who believed they were invincible. Two people who didn't take the time to learn how to fight for each other. She looked over at Logan on the couch. He was laughing at something on his phone. Not once did he look her way. And she realized something that hit her like a punch to the chest. She missed him, even though he was right there. The turning point didn't come in a fight. It came in a whisper. Penelope had been crying in the car. She didn't even remember why. Maybe it was the way he ignored her that morning. Maybe it was the way she felt invisible at dinner. Maybe it was just the weight of carrying a love that no longer loved her back. She walked into the house, eyes red, face blotchy. Logan looked up from his laptop and said, "Did you forget to get the mail?" That was it. No hug. No, "Are you okay?" No, "What happened?" Just the mail. And that's when she knew. Really knew. She wasn't his partner anymore. She was just someone who did the chores. Someone who paid half the bills. Someone who slept next to him, but lived a million miles away. She thought about all the things they never talked about. All the conversations they skipped when they rushed into love. What made him afraid? What did he believe in? What did he need when he was sad? She didn't know. And he didn't know her either. They built a marriage on chemistry and hope, but never took the time to build a friendship. Penelope sat on the floor that night, back against the kitchen cabinets, her wedding ring heavy on her hand. She looked at it, turned it slowly with her fingers, and whispered the words that had been sitting in her chest for months. This isn't love anymore. Not the kind that lasts. Not the kind that grows. Not the kind that survives winter after winter. She stood up, wiped her face, and knew soon she would have to leave. Not because she didn't love him, but because she finally loved herself enough to stop shrinking in a house that no longer held her. The hardest part wasn't deciding to leave. It was living in the almost before she did. Penelope didn't pack her bags overnight. She didn't run out the door or shout in anger. Instead, she drifted, like a ghost in her own home. She still made breakfast, still folded his shirts, still laughed at his jokes even when they didn't land. But inside, something had gone cold. Not hateful, just empty. Logan didn't notice. Or maybe he did, but didn't want to see it. They stopped touching. No kisses, no soft morning hugs. Just a nod, a routine, a silence that swallowed everything alive. Penelope started sleeping with her back to him. At first, she cried quietly. Then she stopped crying at all. That's when she knew her heart had gone numb. She began spending more time at work. Took long drives with no destination. Sat alone in diners just to feel like she still existed. Strangers smiled at her more than her husband did. And that hurt in a way she didn't know how to explain. One evening, as they sat side by side on the couch, not talking, not touching, a commercial came on. It showed a couple holding hands, laughing in a kitchen. Penelope stared at the screen, then at Logan, and asked him quietly, "Do you think we're happy?" He didn't even look at her, just shrugged and said, "What kind of question is that?" That was all she needed. No fight, no begging, just a shrug. That night, she slept in the guest room, and the next morning, she didn't make breakfast. When she finally said the words, they came out calm. No shouting, no drama. "I think we should end this," she told him one Sunday morning. Her voice steady, her hands still. Logan blinked, then nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Maybe we should." No argument, no trying to fix it, no please stay. Just two people sitting in the ashes of something they once believed in, too tired to rebuild it. They split the furniture like business partners. She took the bookshelves. He kept the couch. They didn't fight over anything, not even the memories. Penelope packed her things over the course of a week, each item a tiny goodbye. A mug they bought on a weekend trip, the hoodie she always stole, the framed photo of their wedding, now face down in a box. She didn't cry. She thought she would, but the grief had already passed. It had been bleeding out of her for months. What was left now was silence, peaceful, painful, necessary. On her last day in the house, Logan wasn't home. She left her keys on the counter, took one last look at the living room, and walked out. No goodbye note, no message, just the sound of the door closing behind her. Like the final page of a chapter no one finished reading. Penelope drove away, the Nebraska sky wide and empty above her, her heart both broken and free. They were married for 11 months. 11 months of passion, silence, hope, and regret. Not a failure, just a lesson. Some love stories aren't meant to last. Some are meant to teach you what you truly need. And sometimes, letting go is the bravest thing you'll ever do. People always say, when you know, you just know. But sometimes, you only think you know. Penelope and Logan fell fast. So fast, they didn't see the sharp edges of each other. They skipped the hard conversations, avoided the uncomfortable questions. They kissed before they asked. They planned forever before they unpacked the past. They mistook chemistry for compatibility, laughter for understanding, and warmth for depth. That's the part no one warns you about. They didn't talk about childhood wounds. They didn't ask how the other coped with stress, or anger, or grief. They didn't learn how to disagree, because at first, there was nothing to fight about. Everything felt easy, and in that ease, they overlooked everything that mattered. Logan didn't know that Penelope panicked when things felt too quiet, that silence reminded her of the home she grew up in, that she needed words, connection, presence, not because she was needy, but because she had spent her life not being heard. Penelope didn't know that Logan shut down when he felt misunderstood, that he carried the weight of disappointment from people who never stayed, that he had learned to disappear before he could be left behind. They never talked about that. They talked about favorite foods, their dream vacations, their favorite childhood movies. But they never sat in the uncomfortable parts of themselves, the parts that would inevitably surface. By the time they needed those conversations, it was too late. They had already moved in, already merged bank accounts, already built a routine. And routines, when built on fantasy, become cages. They didn't fight over the big things. No betrayals, no secrets, no abuse. They simply didn't know each other well enough to survive the weight of real life. Logan didn't know how to comfort her without being asked. Penelope didn't know how to respect his need for space without feeling rejected. They tried, they really did. But love without understanding is like a house without a foundation. It looks beautiful, until the first storm comes. And it did. Not all at once, but slowly. One disagreement, one misunderstanding, one missed opportunity to say, "Talk to me." They stopped sharing thoughts, stopped asking questions, stopped showing up for each other in the small, unseen ways that build a lasting bond. And one day, they woke up next to someone they barely recognized, still married, still wearing rings, but strangers nonetheless. That's what falling too fast can do. It burns bright, it feels magical, but it leaves you with no map, no compass for the storms ahead. Penelope learned that the hard way. And so did Logan. 11 months. That's all it took. Not because they were bad people, not because they didn't love each other, but because they didn't pause, didn't ask the hard things, didn't take the time to build the slow, solid love that survives the weight of real life. In the end, it wasn't one mistake that ended them. It was 1,000 missed chances to really see each other. And maybe that's the most heartbreaking ending of all. When the love was real, but the knowing never came. It's been months since she walked away. Penelope now lives in a small apartment on the edge of Lincoln. Nothing fancy. Just enough light, a quiet balcony, and the kind of peace you only earn after walking through the fire. She doesn't talk to Logan anymore. They didn't stay friends. They didn't need to. Some goodbyes are clean. Some are kind. Theirs was quiet, but necessary. Sometimes, late at night, she thinks about the way they danced in the kitchen. How he used to rest his hand on the small of her back. How they used to whisper plans for a life that never came. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. Now, it's more like a distant ache. Like a song you used to love that no longer makes you cry, but still makes you pause when it plays. She's not bitter. She doesn't blame him anymore. And more importantly, she doesn't blame herself. She understands now that falling in love is easy. But staying in love? That's a daily choice. A conversation. A willingness to know and be known. She rushed it. They both did. They let the magic sweep them away before building something real to stand on. And she learned, love without patience isn't love. It's infatuation in disguise. These days, Penelope goes slow. She listens more. She asks questions. Not just the fun ones, but the scary ones. She pays attention to how people handle silence, and anger, and failure. She doesn't want perfect. She wants real. Sometimes she still wears the necklace Logan gave her on their 6-month anniversary. Not because she misses him, but because it reminds her of a version of herself that believed in fast fairy tales. A girl who didn't yet know the cost of skipping the getting to know you part. She knows now. And that knowledge is her freedom. Not all love stories are meant to last. Some are meant to wake you up, to break you open, to teach you how to never lose yourself again. And if you ask Penelope today what she learned from those 11 months, she'll pause, smile softly, and say, next time, I'll fall in love slowly, so I don't have to fall apart fast. And if this story moved you, or even made you think, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone. And this story is a work of fiction. All characters, names, and situations are entirely made up and are not based on real individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.